from UK and Switzerland. And I worked here. I started working at schools as a Dutch teacher. That's German as a foreign language for those students who do speak little or no German. And I just realized, because I have a lot of expat friends, that they often ask me, like, sort of, how's this working, that working? And I just realized how different the system is, especially like coming from the UK or another, particularly Anglo-Saxon system, or a system, even France, that works very, very differently. And I think I just started, probably 10, 12 years ago, just as giving advice to friends, while actually working within the Swiss system. And then I started running seminars, so information seminars about starting school in Switzerland, etc. And it just evolved over time that I got more and more families approaching me and saying, like, well, thank you, your seminar was very useful, but actually, do you also have a bit more private, tailored consultation? And I think that really changed a lot with COVID, because then, as everyone else, I discovered webinars. And so that also meant, like, I could obviously reach a lot of people who are not yet in the country. Before that, my business was very much face-to-face, and now it's probably mostly online, although I do still give talks and seminars, etc. And I think it's also involved in the sense of giving generic information to actually being a bit more of a, I don't know, like sort of really solving quite particular, quite individual queries from homeschooling, or transition from international school to local school with no German. So it tends to get more and more specialized. And that's
And where do you find most of your clients come from?
That has changed. It used to be the UK. Unfortunately, with Brexit, now I would say the biggest part comes from the US. US and also Eastern Europe. And also, to a smaller part, Western Europe. Obviously, a lot of Germans, but it's a bit more similar, the Swiss system, to the German system. So I tend to get less requests from Germans. But definitely US is definitely by far sort of the biggest client base I have.
And what are kind of some of the biggest concerns that some of the expat families have?
I think by far the biggest concern is that, on the one hand, they would like to integrate, and they would quite like to get the local system a try, but they hear also a lot of things about, like, oh my God, everyone here is doing an apprenticeship, and children are not allowed to study, and it's very strict. And I think there's a lot of, I wouldn't say misinformation, because obviously the system is different, but also I think just lack of information about, like, the different pathways. And so I think the most requests I get is like, well, I don't know, I'm arriving here with young children, like, should I go local, or am I closing down, I don't know, pathways or doors? So that's a big concern.
Yeah, because the system, I'm from Canada, and the system is quite different. I think in a way, there's far more options with this system than there is in Canada, because I always felt that it was the university pathway or you're a failure. So I really appreciate that there's so many different ways that you can nurture somebody. But I can understand the confusion. And I know that there's some differences between the cantons as far as the system. Are there significant differences, or is it just sort of subtle?
Actually, like, in a way, you could almost say, like, you have 26 different systems.
Really?
I mean, with some cantons, there are less difference with the others. But I just if you want to compare Zurich and Basel, for instance, a good case in point. In Zurich, you have under, I think it's
Excuse me, just a moment. There's somebody mowing the lawn just outside my window. I'm just going to close the window.
Yeah, no worries.
That's better.
So It starts with the fact that in Zurich, you have under 20% children joining so no, it starts actually with the fact that in Zurich, most parents try to get their children to join the academic track after primary school. That's
Mhm.
a so-called gymnasium. In
Mhm.
Zurich, you have either the 6-year or the 4-year program.
Okay.
And for both programs, there is an entry exam that is actually like really meant to kind of filter out over 50% of all applicants.
Uh-huh.
And I think the overall gymnasium rate is only like it's under 20%. And in Basel, there's only a 4-year gymnasium program. That means
Okay.
like children go to the primary school, then they do secondary school. They are in different ability sets, but
Yeah.
there isn't this special like academic track as there is in
Okay.
Zurich. And then
Okay.
they only go for 4 years. So this, you also have the selection, but the selection is not done via, is not relying on entrance exam. It's actually relying on grades, behavior, and teacher recommendation.
Okay. And those are the middle school years from grades 7 to 9. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, so middle school is from 7 to 9. This you have the same model in Zurich, but
Okay.
then as a fourth component, you have the so-called gymnasium, the
Yeah.
long-term gymnasium 6-year program, and the short-term gymnasium 4-year program.
Okay.
Whereas in Basel, you only have the 4-year program.
Okay.
So that's slightly different. I would say I think the main difference is really the entrance exam, because that's a really how do you say, a bottleneck in Zurich, and many
Right.
parents in Zurich are very unhappy about it because it is a written exam in German and maths, so previous grades count, but only 50%, and then
Okay.
it all depends on the entrance exam, and
Wow. I mean, that
it's
sounds
very
very
very tough.
stressful. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm glad they don't have that in Basel. Um,
yeah.
uh, I guess I suppose you come from the German system, which I'm not sure how different that is, but I guess I would like to know kind of some of the advantages and disadvantages of the Swiss system as you see it.
Mhm. I think compared to other systems with a quite heavy focus on high school entry and university, the advantages are obviously like it's more linear. So you don't have this vocational academic split at quite a young age as you do
Hmm.
in Switzerland. Um, that can benefit children who need more time to mature. Um,
Right.
Having said that, the Swiss system does allow for later entry. So, and this is actually like where often expat families struggle with, because they think like linear, like they're
Hmm.
used to back
Hmm.
home, and here you can join at later stages. And there are actually, I think over 13 ways to join university at a later stage. So it
Okay.
doesn't need to be through the gymnasium faster
Yeah.
academic track. There are various different pathways.
Okay.
So that's an advantage in terms also of maturity, because some children at the age of 12 are not there yet. They
Mm.
might be very bright and academic, but they lack the maturity to actually sit down and learn, because the academic middle school track is very very demanding.
Hmm.
Um, and so they might be bright, but it's really, it requires a lot of motivation and independence. Yeah, so I think the disadvantage is it definitely, I would say, it disadvantages children who come here at a later stage with little German.
Hmm.
That's for
Hmm.
me really the main criticism I have about the Swiss system, is that yeah, if children come later with no German, as opposed to children coming to Canada with no English, in the Canadian or in the US or in the UK system, I've seen far more efforts to integrate these children. And it's also
Hmm.
like, as the system is more linear, it's also easier.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I think like it's more flexible. So you have pathways for everyone. This is why it's saying like all ways leading to Rome really is very true for the Swiss system, because you can do an apprenticeship. The former UBS CEO, he actually did his apprenticeship in a bank.
Okay.
And then he did his vocational baccalaureate or matura, and he worked his way up. And that's still a very Swiss way of combining vocational training, so practical experience, with then university studies. And I think that's definitely a very, very big strength of the Swiss system.
Yes.
The other thing is obviously like the vocational split at a quite young age. So, yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you very much for that part. So I plan on highlighting your consultancy in an article. I sent you a couple examples.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I think that these kind of services would be really useful to people coming to Basel, and you seem to know the Basel system equally as well as the Zurich system. So I'm sure that it would help you for that. So that was kind of the first part of the interview.